This is TWiT.
I titled this "All Your Database Are Belong to Us," which will be of reminiscent to those listeners of ours who remember "All Your Base Are Belong to Us." That was this weird internet meme that happened years ago.
Oh yes.
So even before I was skimming, even before I was skipping over the news, as I do now, of the ransomware attack du jour, because I sort of we got a little crazy this summer with all of the preschool startup ransomware attacks that were nuts pretty much through the southeast of the country. I had already been skipping over the news of the publicly exposed database du jour, because that's another thing which actually preceded the ransomware attacks, is that this or that company would, be found to have their database publicly exposed on the internet. And it's like, what? How does this happen? You got to wonder. And so, yes, we've talked about plenty of those in the past. But even so, when it happens to Adobe, such a major player, it still seems worthy of dishonorable mention. A data hunter who we've spoken of in the past by the name of Bob Diachenko discovered a wide open, public, and unsecured database belonging to Adobe Saturday before last, on October 19th. The database contained the email addresses and other Adobe-specific information of nearly 7.5 million customers of Adobe's Creative Cloud. That database included the account creation date, the products that they're using, the status of their subscription, whether or not this is an Adobe employee, the member's ID, the country they're located in, how long it's been since their last login, and the payment status of their Creative Cloud account. So it turns out that's information affects approximately half of the believed size of Adobe's Creative Cloud customer database. However, what was not exposed this time was any obviously compromising information, such as their passwords or their credit card numbers, payment information. On the other hand, what was exposed is exactly the sort of inside information, member IDs, products used, subscription status, and so forth, that can be leveraged to make phishing emails far more believable, and can therefore be used to induce users to download and run malware in a phishing campaign. So, once upon a time, there was much less mischief that miscreants could get up to with this sort of data breach. Those times are long gone, and we see successful phishing campaigns leveraging exactly this kind of disclosure. And the bigger question we must ask here is, how does this happen to an organization such as Adobe, where security must be an out in the front requirement for any sort of work like this? How does a database containing 7.5 million of Adobe's customers get placed by mistake out onto the public internet? In its security update dated last Friday, October 25th, Adobe posted this. They said of this breach, "At Adobe, we believe transparency with our customers is important. As such, we wanted to share a security update," which is the way they couched this. They said, "Late last week, Adobe became aware of a vulnerability related to work on one of our prototype environments. we promptly shut down the misconfigured environment. And by the way, they did, like immediately within hours of being notified, to their credit. They said, addressing the vulnerability. The environment contained Creative Cloud customer information, including email addresses, but did not include any passwords or financial information. This issue was not connected to, nor did it affect, the operation of any Adobe core products or services. Okay, that's technically true. We are reviewing our development processes to help prevent a similar issue from occurring in the future. Should you have any questions, we encourage you to contact us at, and then the generic helpx.adobe.com/contact.html. And of course, note that their transparency was not really optional, since the news of this breach was widely published the same day. So to their credit, Adobe did take the exposed data offline immediately upon being notified of its exposure on October 19th. But they say that they're reviewing their development processes to help prevent similar issues in the future. So one would have hoped that this was done after their very similar October 2013 breach, which impacted at least 38 million of their users, 3 million of whom had their encrypted credit cards and login credentials exposed. So maybe the previous security review wore off, and it was time to have another one so that they can figure out again how to keep this from happening in the future. I don't know. But anyway, the problem is, as I said, these days, even though the information was not massively, instantly exploitable, like login information, financial information, and so forth, the big threat now is phishing attacks. That's the way users are induced to clicking on email, in that database was a flag if you were an Adobe employee. So for a phisher, that says, "Ooh, let's send a very convincing looking phishing email containing information that only we at Adobe would have to our own employee, inducing them to click something in order to who knows what." You could easily see that kind of email would be far more likely to induce someone in Adobe to click a link and then get malware introduced into Adobe's network. So, it's not at all clear that that despite the fact that there isn't any, instantly leverageable information, that it can't now be used for a modern attack, because that's exactly the kind of thing we see.